ladies and gentlemen, has it ever happened to you that if you're working on a code or on a solution, but you just don't know where to run? Ever? If so, then I would really like to welcome Mr. Vaibhav Malpani, Google Developer Expert for Google Cloud Platform, to talk on the topic, where should I run my stuff? Choosing compute options. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause.
Thank you for joining Mr. Vaibhav. With your expertise in cloud technologies and architecture design, we are excited to learn from you about choosing the right compute models for our systems and how do they align with Google Cloud services. Without further ado, I invite you to share your insights on selecting the best fit compute models for different scenarios.
Thank you. How are you guys? Cannot hear? All sleepy? Okay. That's not my problem then, it's all the other speakers. I'll try to make this talk as interactive as possible till I get my slides. I'd like to ask few questions. I cannot see anyone. If you can shout out my answers by saying me, I'll really appreciate. How many of you have built or deployed anything on GCP? Okay, a lot of folks. How many of you have actually used any of the services? Can you name few? You can shout out anyway. No, don't wait for mic. Compute, okay. App Engine, Cloud Run, GKE. Okay, awesome. अरे उसमें present आता है. Thank you. Okay. Sorry for any commotions. I'll like to start now. My timer has also started, as you can see. Yeah. So my name is Vaibhav Malpani. I'm a GD for GCP, organizer at GDG Cloud Mumbai, and also working at senior software engineer at Incedo. You can follow me on LinkedIn and ask me any questions that you have regarding this or any other things. I'll be very happy to answer. So the question of this talk is, where do I run my stuff? How do you choose which compute to go, or when do you choose what? So that's the question I'll like to answer. So it depends. So the first thing is, it depends on what you're actually building or trying out. And over the entire talk, I'd like to explain on what things it will depend on. Yeah, so these are the few compute services that we have, which is Cloud Function, App Engine, Cloud Run, GKE, and Compute Engine. So everyone earlier has given all of these, right? So you know few things about it, but you don't know when to use what, or let's say what are the caveats, or what are you losing when you're using this versus that. That's the main thing we'll talk about. There are a few things written at the end of each of those services. I'll like to explain that as we end our slides. So you have to make your right decision, and it shouldn't be a very, if you make a wrong decision, it might be the biggest mistake of your life. If you are building a project which is going to last for 10 years, 20 years, right? So the first thing we'll talk is Cloud Functions. What is Cloud Functions, right? It's a serverless environment to build your cloud services. What it depends on is, how many of you have used function? Do you know what is a function? Or for Java people, do you know method? Yes. So what is a method supposed to do? If you have written it correctly, it is supposed to do one single thing properly. I've seen code where you put 4 or 5 things in a single function. That wouldn't be a really good function, but a normal function would look like it should do one thing correctly. So what Cloud Function it is similar. It is supposed to do one single thing. You give a call to it and it will do that thing, and it will just close, right? So it is fully managed. You only pay for what you use, and the billing model is usage wise. So you have used it for let's say 10 seconds, you have to only pay for 10 seconds and not for the entire duration. So what does a developer has to think about, right? So developer has to think about 2 things, which is what are the events on which my function will be triggered. Of events could be HTTP trigger, cloud PubSub, or cloud storage. Any of those triggers can trigger your cloud function. And function definition, which is once this gets triggered, what does your function need to do, right? So these are the main 2 things that you have to think about. So we'll also talk about good fit and constraints. This is how all of my slides will go. We'll talk about good and bad things about each and everything, because no one service is good and no one service is bad, right? So the good fit is serverless, and you can do small ETL pipelines kind of things here on Cloud Function. I will not read through each of those in the interest of time. The constraint is functional level granularity. So let's say you are building an application which has 100 functions. Managing those functions becomes a headache as and when it grows, right? So that's one of the constraints we have in Cloud Function. Next is App Engine. So App Engine lets the developer focus on building the code and not focus on, okay, where it is it going to scale, what is the version it is on, the traffic splitting, as in is it going to version 1 or version 2, how much traffic should go to version 1, the version 2. All of those things you don't have to worry about when you are doing App Engine, and it is called serverless. Before it was cool. So what does a developer need to think about here? He needs to think about how should my code be, where would I get my HTTP request, and what version am I hosting it on? Is it version 2, version 3? So that is something a developer has to think about, but not about scaling or traffic splitting, all of those things. So again, good fixes. You can do HTTPS response. The bad things is, it is not bad thing, constraints. The constraints is you have to have a particular standard environments. So let's say here the environment supported Python, Java, PHP, Go, Node. But let's say you want to do something on Ruby on Rails. So that support, we are not sure if you have that or not on App Engine. So you'll have to, you cannot go for Ruby on Rails if you want to. So few constraints there. The next one is Cloud Run. This is my favorite service. It is serverless agility of containerized application. How many of you know containers? Just shout out. No, I cannot see. Just shout out. I want you people to speak something. Yeah. Me? Yeah. Okay. A lot of people I can see, around 50-60%. So containers are amazing. If you have containers, you have all these capabilities of performance, isolation, portability. And the biggest thing is you cannot say this, right? That it works on my machine. If it works on your machine, it will work everywhere. That's the beauty of having containers. Now what Cloud Run does is, it takes containers and makes it serverless. So it's best of both worlds. You will have a proper application which is isolated and easily portable, and it can scale to whatever ground you have to. It can scale to thousands of instances without a problem, right? And it can also handle concurrent requests up to 80. And yeah, you only pay for what you use. So you have used it for, let's say, 100 seconds, and you'll have to pay only for that. That's a beautiful thing. What does a developer need to think about, right? As you see, as and when we are going ahead here, so a developer needs to think a lot more about his application, right? So now here the developer needs to think about, okay, is my application containerized? If not, I'll have to make it containerized to be so that I can use Cloud Run. I also have to make sure that my application is exposed on a port through the containers, and there only I can get the response and not anywhere else. So few more things that developer has to think about, except for just writing code which we had in Cloud Function, right? With me? Okay, thank you. So we'll talk about good fit and constraints here as well. So good fit is, it is stateless, and you can scale up and down as you want. As there is requests coming, it will scale up. Again, the language dependency is not at all here, right? So tomorrow, let's say there is Python 3.12 that is getting released, and you want to start off just right now. You could have not been able to do this in App Engine or Cloud Function, but here, let's say you can just spin up a container, make an image with 3.12 installed in it, deploy it to Cloud Run. You have 3.12 with all its features, and you can use it right away. So that's a very good thing. Constraints is, you need to have containers. If your application is not built on container, you'll have to change that and make it containerized. That's one of the constraints. And you'll have to also decide the build process. Okay, where will my code go? How will be deployed? All of those things. The next is GKE. Yeah. So GKE is built on Kubernetes. How many of you have heard about Kubernetes? Okay. So Kubernetes is the de facto platform we use for running containers. GKE is so it is using Kubernetes behind the scenes and making it better. In terms of it will manage the cluster, the compute node, the software updates, and the auto scaling. So you don't have to worry about all of those things if you are using GKE. The billing model is on resource basis. So let's say even if you have an application which is rarely used, but it is on for a month, you will have to pay for the full month. So you will have to be conscious about those things about using GKE, that even if your cost is not on usage basis, it's on resource basis. So you will have to pay for whether it is used or not. So what does now a developer has to think about, right? He is getting more scared. If you see all the emojis, he was not that scared as this one, right? So he has to think about the logical infrastructure, how each of the components will connect with each other. That's why I call this as whiteboarding view. So what I mean by whiteboarding view is, let's say you have consider this as a whiteboard in front of me. This is my compute, this is my database, this is my Redis cache, this is my OAuth server. So I'll have to connect all of those things, right? So in your whiteboard, if you are connecting it, running it on GKE is similar to that. You'll have to, let's say for connecting your compute to database, you'll have to write few lines of code in your YML file, which will connect that. If you have to connect your compute to your Redis, you'll have to write few lines of code to connect that. So whatever you're thinking, you'll have to actually write those in YML file. So that's what I call as whiteboarding view. And this is something the developer now has to think about. Right, so good fit constraints. So the good fit is you can have multi-cloud environment in GKE. So you can have one of your cluster in GCP and one of your cluster in other cloud providers. And not only cloud providers, you can have it on your on-prem as well. Yeah. You can take advantage of containers. You'll have to have CI/CD pipeline. Constraints are same, which is you will have to have containers, containerized application. One more constraint is licensing. So there are few licenses which are specifically to one of the machine. But if you are scaling in Kubernetes, your machines will scale, but your license will not, right? So you'll have to have that figured out earlier, right? If I need to scale my machine to 3, from 1 to 3, I'll have to have 3 licenses in place. This is for licenses which is machine specific. Yeah, the last one is compute engine. I think most of you have used compute engine. What it does is you can spin up a compute engine in 20 seconds, take your application, put it on compute engine, you can see you're on cloud. Well, technically you are and you are not, because you are not using any of the features or the capability or good things about cloud. You are just putting it on cloud for the namesake. But you can do it, and there are use cases when you need to do it, which I'll speak about as and when go ahead. But how many of you know him? No. What's the name? Yeah. So you can see, right? He is always very afraid. If you put your application on compute engine, you will look like this, right? Because you'll have to think about a lot of things. Let's say you are moving from database 3. How many of you? Okay, MongoDB, right? It is going from 3.4 to 4.3. And they are degrading the 3.4 version, right? So you will have to manually go there, do all the updates, and then you'll have to have downtime if things didn't work as well. So all of those small things you'll have to do it manually. That's not such a good thing, right? So, and also firewall, load balancer, VPNs, all of those things you'll have to manage. Good fits. You can move your existing application to GCP by just a lift and shift, and you'll have to also you can run database and all of those things. The constraint is, you'll have to handle all the software updates and everything related to software you'll have to do manually, auto scaling, all of those things. So where should I run my code? Well, it depends. It depends more. There are more things, and you need a lot of things. You have a lot of things to think about, right? Earlier I showed this, right? Which is, if you go for Cloud Function, everything is event driven based. For App Engine, it is all web application. On container Cloud Run, you have containerized and web application. Kubernetes is completely containerized application, and for VMs, it is the existing system. You can just move there, right? So it is clear till this? Okay. Well, if you have not found a good fit already, it depends on a lot more things, which is abstraction level, technical requirement, and team and organization. Till now, what if you have some requirements, you can trickle down. If you don't, you can function easily on Cloud Function with if you can have that code build in place, so you can do all of those things easily with a new project. But if you are having an existing project, you can at least first do is lift and shift it to Compute Engine, then work your way up as and when required. So the moment of absolute clarity, right? You have made the right choice. Is it? No. I'll still say you cannot just rely on using one simple thing. You will have to have mixtures of many things. You cannot just say, okay, you can, but in most of the cases that I have seen, you'll have to have few things here and few things there. So use them together we must, or together we will fall. So you will use many of the services together. Can someone name the first two services? Just shout out. Cloud Function, the second one? Okay, nice. So you know your logos. Can anyone name the second part? So, Cloud Run, GKE, okay. Sorry? Compute, yeah. Okay, so you can use combinations of all of those services and make your application as good as possible, right? And use whatever works best for your application. So if you need more info, you can go to these links. And yeah, thank you. You have been a great audience. And please connect with me if you have any question regarding this or anything else. I'll generally reply within a day. I still have a minute if anyone has any questions. Okay, I'll save 1 minute for the organizers then. Thank you.
Thank you so much for saving a minute and enlightening us, and also helping us make informed decisions.
On behalf of our team, I would like to express our gratitude towards Mr. Vaibhav Malpani for his insightful session, and all of you, our esteemed attendees, for joining us today. We hope you find this session informative and it will assist you in making the best choices for running your application. I really like your presentation. Thank you. I request Mr. Shailesh sir to felicitate Mr. Vaibhav.